You are most welcome, everyone, to the official launch of Encrypt Africa. The date today is 12th September 2020. My name is Veronica Rose. I'm an information systems auditor and the founder of Encrypt Africa. Just to remind you about this event, this is the official launch of Encrypt Africa, accompanied by a webinar themed Know Your Digital Rights. The webinar is geared towards advocacy and awareness of digital rights. Just a brief walkthrough on the agenda. I know it's gonna be fun, so keep around. We will let you know about what Encrypt Africa is all about, and then we'll have a panel discussion and a brief presentation from one of our partners, Commercial Limited. We will also have a live Q&A session so that your questions are answered as they come in. Feel free to address a question to your preferred panelist to answer. Keep the conversation live on Twitter. Our handle is @AfricaEncrypt. Our hashtag is Encrypt Africa, hashtag digital rights, hashtag online safety. So our mission as Encrypt Africa is to enlighten digital citizens of the importance of digital rights and online child safety in the cyberspace. Our vision is to protect our rights in the digital environment in Africa. So about Encrypt Africa, allow me to take you through a journey of understanding what Encrypt Africa is all about. We know knowledge is needed to maximize the user's personal safety and security to private information, as well as protection from computer crime. And we believe human rights belong to everyone, both online as well as offline. Therefore, the public needs to be informed of the importance of digital rights and cybersecurity. So the name Encrypt Africa is derived from two words, that is encryption and Africa, the continent. And I'll start by defining what encryption is. Encryption is the process of encoding information, and by this I mean a process of converting the original representation of the information known as the plain text into an alternative form known as the ciphertext. Only authorized parties can decipher the ciphertext back to plain text and access the original information. Basically, it is and how you can use it to protect your information online. We are now living in the digital world, so Encrypt Africa is an online foundation dedicated to share important guidance on how to stay safe online, understand your digital rights, and ensure child online safety. We understand that stopping cyber criminals from using and abusing technology online is tough, but we at Encrypt Africa, we will work together with the law enforcement, cybersecurity companies, and the voluntary sector to make a real difference in minimizing abusing of digital rights. We are looking at growing our partnership within the industry, law enforcement, and African governments in identifying and removing illegal and misuse of digital rights, removal of child sexual abuse images from the internet, and ensuring cybersecurity. We will continue to work together to tackle this ever-evolving problem and to pursue our target of making the African continent the safest cyberspace in the world. We are looking forward to establish chapters and projects throughout Africa as a way of driving our agenda throughout the continent. So how will we engage? We are looking at establishing chapters, like I've mentioned, across Africa. And the Nigerian project is going to be started soon. So you can volunteer to become a project lead in your country. We will be hosting Ask Me Anything sessions on social media with our legal team that will be responding to your queries. We'll also invite speakers to talk on the core values of Encrypt Africa. We will host tweet chats and annual events. So to our attendees, how can you be part of this initiative? I know that is a question that will be addressed, that will come in later, but let me address it right away. You can join this campaign through sharing our posts. Our Twitter handle is @AfricaEncrypt, #digital rights, #online safety. Report any digital right violation and cyberbullying. Share blogs or articles on digital rights, data privacy, data protection, and cybersecurity. We will help you republish that article or blog that you will have written. So become an advocate for a safe cyberspace by letting your voice be heard. So we will be sharing updates on how you can get involved. So be on the lookout on our social media platforms because we'll be communicating to you over there. So that's the brief introduction about Encrypt Africa. And right now, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our panelists. This is a very big team. It's comprised of lawyers, it's comprised of auditors, and it's also comprised of cybersecurity professionals. So I'll start by again introducing myself. My name is Veronica Rose. I'm a Global Information Systems Auditor. I'm a board member at ISACA Kenya chapter. I'm an author. I'm a One in Tech topic leader, and I'm a keynote speaker. I'm the founder of Encrypt Africa. So you're welcome. And our next panelist, I'm going to my namesake. She's called Veronica Pana Igube. She's an ICT lawyer. She's a human rights advocate. She's a blogger. She's the founder of Thinking Out Loud with Veronica. And she's also an African Presidential Leadership Program Fellow 2019. I'll go to our next panelist. He's called Marlon Fire. He's an ICT attorney. He's the head of the Digital Law Practice Group and the IT Practice Group of Infusion Lawyers, a virtual intellectual property and information technology law firm for the knowledge economy and the digital age. Fire has experience in advising businesses on ICT laws and compliance, including the use of ICT in business transactions and development. He's a member of the Nigerian Bar Association, currently a member of the ICT Committee and a section on Business Law Nigeria Bar Association. He graduated from the University of Jos, where he received a bachelor's degree in law. I'll tell you more about Fire as we go ahead. Then our other panelist, he's called Aphiz Adeyemo. He has 5 years experience in cybersecurity, and he holds various certifications in cybersecurity and network security. He is currently pursuing his CISA certification. CISA is an ISACA certification, basically for IT auditors and information security assessors. So he has been actually instrumental in hosting cybersecurity awareness programs and series. He has invited me before for one of the series, and I think last month. Yeah. So that is our great panel. And now we are going to the session of taking our live questions. So I hope my panelists are ready. Yes, yes. So I'm going to start with Moses because I know our attendees are trying to wonder what is digital rights. You're telling us to look at, know your digital rights, but what are even my digital rights? So Moses, our viewers would love to hear, to have a clear view from you, what digital rights really are.
Yeah, thank you, Veronica, for the question. I think not to make our listeners more confused, I think in summary, I think digital rights are basically, let's say, the human rights in this internet era. So we can see that they are really like an extension of of the equal and inalienable rights that are laid down in our various countries' constitutions, our laws, and particularly like the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And I can also say that digital right is also like having the right and freedom to use all types of digital technology, and while also using it, we also use it in an acceptable and appropriate manner. So digital rights, like I said, are considered to be like the same fundamental human right that exists in the offline world, but now these are rights in the online world. So particularly just like in 2012, the United Nations Human Rights Council that agreed in one of their resolutions that same rights that people have offline must also be protected online. This means, I think what the United Nations actually did now was that rather than the UN seeking to define new rights for the online space, they just recommended an extension of these existing offline rights to the under the human rights now in the cyberspace. And so far, I think close to as of 2019, 62 countries so far, and including majority of African countries, have also they've joined the United Nations to affirm this civil and political and economic rights. That's this right from the offline, that the offline rights to the online right to be seen and protected as digital rights.
I agree with you. Our rights online should be offline should be reflected the same way online. So why then should we be concerned about digital rights? Moses, let me put you on the spot.
Okay, I think why we need to really be concerned about our digital rights is because if we all know and we all can affirm that most of our lives now are being conducted online. So, like from shopping, socializing, sharing information, whatever you see that we can see that, let me say from 2000 down to now, most of us, if we can recall that now, almost everything we do, we do it online. Not like the previous years where most of maybe what we do are always analog and offline. So it's very necessary that our digital rights are actually protected, particularly rights to privacy online and right to freedom of expression, which they are really becoming very important because we since offline rights are now being taken, most of our activities offline are now being taken online. They need to be protected from, because we've seen an increase in government like trying to shut down internet, that's like a medium which is used for us to express ourselves, trying to put taxes on maybe on various social media platforms that we use to interact with people. So all these are like restriction to our rights, and some again like maybe I've like seen like in a more developed world, things like right access to internet also is a right to them. So I think we need to be concerned because when we also look at internet giants such as Facebook, Google, and some of the even applications we use, if we are really cautious about the kind of information they get about us, and we know the kind of information they get about us, and they use this information either for targeted advertisement. This information can be used to manipulate us and can be used against us. And even when it's been gotten in, when let's say bad actors have access to this information, definitely it can be used against us. So I think for the mere fact that most of our lives are being conducted online now than offline, I think we really need to be be concerned about our digital rights in a way that it shouldn't be used against us and it shouldn't be used to restrict our online privacy and our freedom of expression and interaction.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Moses, for explaining that in depth for us today. And on the same note, I noticed, Moses, you've participated in the drafting of the Nigerian Data Privacy Bill. I would like to get your views together with Veronica on how how the league, what are the, how to do respond to the legal framework. Like, I would like to get your views on the legal frameworks concerning digital privacy.
Okay, I think I'll give the floor to Veronica, so she can kick off. Then I will add. I will join later.
All right, Veronica, take it out.
Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Veronica.
I would like to start by adding a few points to what my colleague Faya had stated earlier about what digital rights are. Presently, we live in a digital space where all our communications on all our activities are online. So digital rights are just essentially, like Faya said, having those rights that we have protected offline to ensure that we are protected online. And in this, we're also using various technologies, the Internet of Things. We're trying to connect the whole world. So we're even trying to connect ourselves to devices. We're using artificial intelligence. And all this is ensuring that the whole world is connected online. But at the same time, in the use of all this technology and in use of being online, our digital rights need to be protected. So rights that we have offline need to be protected online. And the right to privacy is one of those rights that have been given to us or we're entitled to, which are alienable. And these rights have to be protected online. So when you're using technology devices, when you're using your phones, when you're using smart AI with surveillance and many more, we have to ensure that our privacy is being protected. Because one of the issues is that if your privacy isn't protected as offline, you would have instances where government will exploit your rights. Like Faya rightly pointed, you have like big giants like Facebook, Google, Yahoo. They're having access to our data. So the essence is, what are they doing with our data? What are our governments, what legal frameworks are they putting in place to ensure that our rights are protected? Now, like in every country, like in Nigeria, we have the ground norm, which is the constitution, which ensures that we have right to privacy. And we are pushing for data protection and privacy laws to be enacted in our various countries. And presently in Nigeria, we have the bill before the National Assembly. And the goal is that if these laws are passed, then our rights are protected online. We have various regulations and laws that does touch on bits and pieces, just like you have the Constitution, you have the NCC, that's the Nigerian Communications Commission. So they have certain regulations that have been put in place, but we need a whole regulation, and that's why a lot of countries are pushing. Several countries already have their data protection and privacy laws, but unfortunately, Nigeria is one of those countries where we are still in the running and trying to advocate for our privacy laws to be enacted. But regardless, we have the NIDA. It's an organization here in Nigeria that is dedicated to IT, and they have passed a data protection regulation. And that has, regardless, that has been able to create a little protection, but there's still need for the laws, because you have to expressly state that everybody's data online will be protected. It also has to have procedures for retention. If any country, if any organization is going to keep your data, they also have to ensure that there are safeguards for who would have access to it, who shouldn't have access to it. So we have to ensure that these laws are put in place. And it's sadly that a lot of African countries, and that is why we are advocating so that we would have champions of digital rights across the globe who would also push for these protections in their various countries. So I'll give the floor to Faya, because Faya worked closely with the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Faya, take it up from there.
Okay, and to continue where Veronica, I think So I will be, let me say, I'll be more grounded in speaking from the Nigerian perspective and not other African countries. But I know certain majority of African countries are stepping up the game in coming up with their data protection laws, which actually try to safeguard their citizens on how on the protection of their citizens' personal data and it not to be misused by whichever organizations that processes this personal data. So that I'm sure, and so far I know, so far majority of African countries have tried in that aspect. I think back to Nigeria, I think to also to bring it to light, we actually have we currently have a digital rights and freedom bill, which also I think before now it was sometimes last year it was rejected. The president, that's our president, refused to assent it because of certain reasons, which foremost said that the bill had certain data protection provisions in it. And at that time also, we were also trying to push the Nigerian data protection bill. So I think the drafters had to go back and like redraft it. And I think now it's currently before the Senate for it to be passed into law. So I think for Nigeria, outside the data protection bill, we also have like the digital and freedom bill, which when passed into law, it really address basically Nigerian citizens' digital rights and how we can interact with ourselves. Well, what our rights are, the what it also entails what our rights and the extent to which we can also exercise this right. And also, like Veronica also mentioned, I think bits and pieces. There are other regulations which also, like the NCC also has like a regulation which I think the information communication. I think there's a regulation which there's a regulation by the NCC. We also have like the Child Rights Act. We also the Health Act. So basically, just bits and pieces. We have this, but so far we don't have like a particular regulation which touches on digital rights and freedom, apart from the bill which is currently before Mr. President. And hopefully we pray that it's going to be passed into law before this current administration leave office.
Uh, Thank you, Moses. And on the same, about the same bill, would you identify for us what are some of the rights available to users in the digital space?
Okay, so basically, I think the two foremost concern is right to freedom of expression, right to privacy, and intertwining also, I can also say right to protection of your personal data. And when we go to when we go further, we can also see the right to for someone to also give you credit to the use of your own personal work on the digital space. So that's when we go now to the aspect of intellectual property. When we also go to the right to digital act to access to information and access to the internet, right to also let me also say right to fast internet, because yes, because we've seen countries have actually shut down the internet for against their citizens, or either reduce sent memos and communications to their to maybe let me say their telcos or the agency which is in charge of the internet, or the telcos there to reduce the the fastness of internet, so that in order to reduce maybe the interaction or expression or communications of their citizens. And countries, specifically like countries like Uganda, Tanzania, and Cameroon, even Democratic of Congo and Burundi, we've seen this use as they've been shut out from the internet, particularly during an election, in the name of
Hello, Moses? Moses? Veronica, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I think that.
I think we lost him.
Yes, I think so.
I think we lost him.
I can hear you.
Moses, are you there?
So I could add a bit.
You can add on something, Veronica, as he.
Okay, yes, I could add a bit of what he said. So you have, like he stated, you have the right to freedom of expression, freedom of association online. You have the right to access information. You have the right to also access the internet. You have the right to be free from digital surveillance. You have the right to your data privacy. You have the right to be free from discrimination online. You have the right to be free from harassment, violence, hate speech. You also have the right to also participate in the process of internet governance. These are certain rights and many more that as digital citizens, we enjoy when we use both tech and online platforms. For a very long time, there are various organizations that have tried to come together to create like a body of regulations, a declaration. So an instance is the digital the APC Internet Rights Charter. So this is a body of non-governmental organizations, CSOs, lawyers, digital rights advocates. They come together to say, you know what, on the internet, what are certain rights that we need to enjoy? And they come together and there are various ones. UNESCO in 2015 said that there are about 50 internet-specific declarations and frameworks that are trying to ensure that there's a statement. So when a country is trying to pass their own digital laws, they are able to reference these documents. And these documents are also, when they're drafting these declarations for internet rights, they are not drafting it from space. So they have a reference point, which is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. In the case of Africa, you have the African Declaration of the African People's Rights and Human Rights, sorry. So basically, some of the principles are that the internet has to be accessible. There has to be diversity. There is accountability. There is network equality. You have freedom to be discriminated. So if you look across all this, you would see that there's an overlap. They are saying certain things, but they're also like identifying certain principles, access to the internet, access to knowledge. Everybody has the right to access the internet. And that's why certain government and non-governmental organizations are trying to work very hard to ensure that they allow the internet services to reach certain rural areas, which it's not.
All right. Allow me to still put you on the spot because you've been mentioning about the rights that we have online. And speaking of the good, the bad, and the ugly ways digital rights are misused, what are some of the situations? Because I remember Moses had already started mentioning about internet shutdowns, but what are the situations or instances of digital rights violation? Veronica?
Okay, so I'll start where Fire, or I'll continue where Fire had started. So there are a lot of internet shutdowns going on. You see countries like Ethiopia. The recent one is you see Gabon, Togo. And then what you notice with all this is that it would usually occur when there's an election or where there's a protest. So Belarus right now is presently having an unrest, and there was also an internet shutdown experienced in the country. So this would happen where governments would not want people to communicate online. They don't want people to share certain information online. So the internet shutdown affects the right to access to the internet. Now, everybody has the right to access the internet. And when governments shut down the internet, that means nobody can go online. People have their businesses, e-commerce, you have online banks. We communicate through Facebook, WhatsApp, people can reach their loved ones. So internet shutdown not only affects access to the internet, it also causes loss of income. For various countries, you would see countries, there are reports where countries have lost millions of dollars as a result of internet shutdown. People don't have access to education. So you would see in an instance where with the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown, a lot of us are at home and a lot of students are having their classes online. So you can imagine a situation where the internet is shut down. Where there's crisis in the country, there are protests. So you can't get access to information to know what's going on. So this also affects education and affects access. Another one is what we were experiencing is censorship and restrictions to freedom of expression and free speech. You have the right to express yourself online, and you have that right to hold opinions that dissent from that of others and the government. So you see an instance where government, as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, they are trying to ensure that misinformation and fake news is addressed, which is a great thing. But then at the same time, you can't be addressing fake news and misinformation, at the same time censoring people from expressing themselves online. So I'll give an instance. Recently, Uganda, the Communications Commission in Uganda recently put out that all online users, which include bloggers, must register with the commission and pay a certain fee. They are, in a good way, they are trying to regulate the system because you want to ensure that people's rights are protected online. But that going that way also causes people to, you restrict their access to the internet. So an example, I would use the instance of a blogger. A blogger goes online and spreads information, advocates and writes certain opinions that they have. that's a freedom that they have. But then when you tell them that they need to register, you're going to discourage a lot of people. And it's going to be like self-regulation. So you're trying to impede that person from expressing themselves online. So because of the regulation and the fees that they need to pay, certain people that would regularly voice their opinions and have a platform to air their views will now be restricted. But we have that right online to express ourselves. So going that way would see that you're restricting people's access to the internet. Also, Uganda has a communication tax. So if you want to use the internet or buy data, you have to pay a certain fee. This is good because they're trying to protect telecom operators who have invested so much money in infrastructure. But at the same time, they are affecting people from accessing the internet. We're trying to ensure that people in the rural areas can get access to the internet. We're trying to ensure that data tariffs are reduced for people to be able to have access. But if you go back and start putting on communications tax, that means people in the rural areas that are even struggling to get money, that are struggling to even recharge their phone and be able to have access to the internet, and are cut off. So you see government trying to help people to access the internet and at the same time trying to tax them. So I think that the government needs to be able to find a balance. And with the free speech regulation, the fake news. So they're trying to attack fake news and misinformation. You see countries like Cambodia arrested about 15 people for putting out information on COVID-19. And we understand that you're trying to filter fake news, but at the same time, you're trying to say that people can air their views online, and this right is given to us. You would also see an instance of harassment of journalists and activists. So you see certain people post things, journalists would post on their Facebook or their online platforms, and you would see them being arrested, being harassed. The government will state that they must state their source, which of course a journalist isn't supposed to reveal their source. But these threats, then you also would come to mass surveillance. There's a lot of surveillance going on and biosurveillance going on in this digital, the COVID-19 pandemic period. So it's a good thing that the governments are trying to keep track of people who are infected and trying to protect people who are infected, but there's a level of surveillance that is going on. So you have countries having apps, you have countries increasing their surveillance tech. You have, some even have smartwatches that would regulate people, that whether they're going out, they're regulating their doors, they're fixing a lot of things, but we're trying to ask, after the COVID, isn't this quite evasive? Isn't it a situation where governments are overreaching, overstepping? And the problem with this COVID, this pandemic, it took us off guard. So governments are rushing to pass these regulations. And with passing these regulations, there are not a lot of consultations with stakeholders, with digital rights advocates, with the appropriate people to ensure that human rights are protected as they pass these regulations. Now, the problem is, as the regulations are passed, because of the swift nature, we have to ensure that, you know, we restrict this pandemic. And at that same time, we have to protect our citizens and protect, but at the same time, are they specifying in these regulations that the data of the citizens or the patients of COVID-19 is confidential? People having access to them, are they restricting the access that these people have? Can these people just access, you know, you would see where they're registering, they're testing people. How are they keeping these records? After these records are kept, how are they disposing or destroying these records once someone recovers? So is there a place where they just keep them, and can someone have access to them? You know, these are really issues with artificial intelligence and surveillance. How are we sure that AI, how are we sure that they are not going to be discriminatory because of the data that is fed to them? Are they transparent? Are they oversights? Are they safeguard mechanisms put to, and many more? Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. This sounds like someone giving you a cake and then they eat it themselves. Yeah, Moses, you have more remarks on the same?
I think Veronica has really said
Yes.
said much, yes. But I think also, like, to also bring it to, like, maybe our listeners in Nigeria, I think we've also had similar situations in Nigeria where we've seen a couple and a lot of journalists being arrested and detained and even put in incarceration just because of certain comments or trying to challenge the government of the day. So I think the famous provision that they use, it's I think Section 15 of the Cybercrime Act. So even in Nigeria, we've seen that situation happening. But I think it's so far it hasn't really relented. It hasn't even stopped people from airing their voice and views against these acts which are inappropriate. And also, I think recently also our like the National Identity Management Commission, just to even say, I think because of there was like a mandate for the digital identity of Nigeria, there's the project which was about to start. So the agency came out with an application which was it was in the public for people to be able to access their national identity. And when people actually went through this app and saw that there was actually fault and issues with it, so we can even see, even from the government themselves, like Veronica said, just in the rush to come up with a solution or a platform, we find to see that our governments have also failed to have sit down and have consult with people who are actually experts in these areas and see how they can curb and protect their citizens' rights, to a large extent.
Um, Thank you, Moses. I'll go to Aphiz now. Aphiz, you've been so much instrumental in creating cybersecurity awareness through your webinar series that actually the hour is hosted on Monday. So speaking of the current data privacy concerns, data protection concerns, and the data breaches that are happening, how can we raise more awareness on data protection and data privacy?
Okay, thank you so much for the question. Thank you to Veronica and Moses. They've done justice to the topic. As regards data privacy, it is about putting in place a structure that is going to make sure that once there's a breach, whoever is affected is mandated to report that breach to either NITDA or the police or any institution that is responsible for that. Because recently we've seen a lot of cases in Nigeria in the financial sector, not to mention any name, where we've had breaches and till now nothing has happened except for some lawyers who have decided to pick up the issue, sue the affected bank to court and try to get justice for the data sets. Data sets are, individuals, rather the attributes of individuals. So in Nigeria, I think NITDA is doing a great job. They've put out the framework for data protection, NDPR, but till now it has not been enforced because yes, the framework is there, yes, the policy is there, but is there anybody that is going to actually enforce that policy or enforce the law that once you get breached, you pay this fine or you make these reports or you do this, you do that. So to create more awareness, we need to, as individuals, as professionals, build communities, for the developers, for the coders, they have amazing communities where we're able to have members share thoughts, share news, and look for how to grow that sector. So the same thing applies for data protection in Africa and in Nigeria. For now, to the average African or the average Nigerian, data protection is new to them. They've not heard about it. They don't know what it is. They don't know that they actually have rights on the digital space. So I think it is up to myself and other professionals in Africa to make sure we're able to sensitize the public, we are able to sensitize the young professionals who are looking to make the career switch from either their current jobs to the tech space or to the IT industry. Now, IT is diverse and you don't need to have a degree in computer science or in computer engineering to go into tech or to go into IT. You can study banking, you can study finance or anything and still decide to pursue a career in cybersecurity or in data protection or digital privacy. So I think it is left to us. We can create communities, we can organize workshops and webinars, we can organize events just to create awareness, just to talk to more people and to engage more people, especially the youth. Because when you look at the dynamics of the African continent, we have more youths on the internet space. People are on Instagram, they are on Twitter, they are on Facebook, pushing out information. And so for me, it is very essential we talk to those set of people and we make them realize the danger that is in putting your personal information on the internet, how you can stay protected and basically to know their rights. So I think it is more about creating more awareness through communities, through forming of groups, through forming of workshops and the likes.
Thank you, Aphiz, for that. And I would like to remind our audience, I'm yet to handle the live questions. So feel free to leave your questions in the Q&A section. Feel free also to address the question to the panelists you'd want to answer that question. So in a few minutes, we are getting there, but right now, I'd like to put Veronica again on the spot so that she can answer for me this one. With the COVID regulations and impacts on digital rights, what can we do to change the situation?
Thank you. So one of the things that we could do to change the situations, like Aphiz rightly pointed, we have to raise advocacy on digital rights. We have to engage the people. So people need to be aware that there are certain rights, and these rights are theirs, and they should, you know, speak up for their rights. They need to challenge the government to ensure that these rights are protected. So if they do not know that these rights exist online or with the use of technology, how are they going to even like start? So advocacy is the first start. And this is one of the platforms, and this is one of the mandates of Encrypt Africa, to ensure that we educate the masses, also in rural areas, because these are places where you have people who have challenges with access to the internet. Another one is we have to engage our lawmakers. That is very key, because our lawmakers are the ones who make these regulations. So they need to be educated to understand the importance of the protection of digital rights. They need to be educated to see how it affects not only the citizens, how it affects the running of the country. And there are various countries like the Democratic Republic of Congo. There's an amazing non-governmental organization that has been working key. One of their mandates is working key with lawmakers in their country. So what they do is they bring these lawmakers in, they have trainings for them, educating them on what digital rights are, the challenges, the violations of certain digital rights, the importance of having these laws. Because in the end, we can make all these discussions, we can say all we want to say, I have this right, but if those rights are not passed into law, the protection of there and having redress would be very, very difficult. So that's why we have to champion the cause, engage our lawmakers to be able to educate them and get them to also see and pass laws like the Digital Rights and Freedom Bill, like Fire rightly pointed out, was failed in 2019 to be signed by the Nigerian president. There are certain civil organizations that are also working around in Africa, trying to see that the replica of this is also passed in other African countries. So there's also need for collaboration. Collaboration is key because you can't work alone. Non-governmental organizations, CSO, advocates, and various stakeholders need to come together and collaborate with one voice to be able to ensure that the government listens and they take this issue seriously. Seek redress from the courts. So you have to have strategic litigation, because right now the courts are the protectors of the law. They are the guardians of the law. So we have to ensure that we have strategic litigation where digital rights are violated. There are certain non-governmental organizations globally who are giving special fund to digital rights non-governmental organizations in various parts of the world. And if you apply for that, the essence of that is to ensure that funding is not a challenge in strategic litigation, because once this litigation, once a decision comes out from the court, this is something that can be taken place to ensure that our digital rights are protected. So advocacy, engagement of our lawmakers, and strategic litigation. Togo, the ECOWAS court gave Togo, even if it took time, early this year, during the pandemic, they gave a ruling where the shutdown that occurred in, I think, 2017 in Togo was declared illegal and infringed on the rights of the citizens. And the government was fined a certain fee by the ECOWAS court. So this shows, and there are various even court judgments that have shown that if we go to the courts to be able to get a final judgment from the courts, they would protect our rights. So these are key and strategic ways that we can ensure that our digital rights are protected online. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. And on the same, I'll still go to Moses because now we are living in a digital environment. And I'd like Moses to tell us what are some of the digital responsibilities as digital citizens. What are our responsibilities?
Okay, I think first of all, I will start by saying our first and basic responsibility in using any digital platform in trying to express ourselves, communicate, interact, or is one. It's we should know we should.
Moses? Moses, we can't hear you.
So I did not going to use it against me. And I think another major thing is we should be wary and we should be careful of the kind of information we put out there. Because to be honest, like I say, if you are not comfortable in a certain information, let's say maybe on a crossroad which has a very big billboard for everybody who is passing to see, then don't put that information online. Because once you put, like they say, the internet never forgets.
Yeah.
So once you put this information online, anyone, anywhere can use this information against you. So we should be careful of the kind of information we put out there, the kind of things we see out there, because all these can be used against us. And I think another major thing is the use of appropriate language and our behavior when interacting with others online. That's when you go to the extreme south, cyberbullying and inciting of violence and the rest. So I think we need to be, it's not always that we need to be sarcastic or trying to incite violence or trying to force our opinions and ideas on people. We should also try to respect people's opinions, people's idea, and the kind of language also we use should also be really appropriate. Yes, there's a freedom of expression online, but that expression also should actually be limited to the kind of language we use, and whether these facts actually we are putting out there is actually true or false. And like also, I think Veronica also, we should also reduce the spread of fake news, because the truth is whatever information we come across, we should try as much as possible to verify that information before clicking that send button or that sharing button. Because to be honest, fake news has found to spread like wildfire. And it has also incited aggression or incited hate, and it's incited so many things against maybe a particular group of people or a particular religion. So when it comes to fake news, we should, for whatever information we find online or we come across online, or whatever information is targeted to us to come in contact with, we should try as much as possible verify that information first before clicking that share button, that sharing button, or forwarding that. I think coming back to intellectual property, I think we should try as much as possible to also obey intellectual property laws by not misusing people works online. And also before you use or try to, like they say, seek for permission or try to also acknowledge people's work online also. And whatever rules and whatever platform we use as individuals, I think we also need to obey the rules and conduct which are also provided, like the term of use on. So basically, I think for whatever platform we are using, I think we need to ask certain questions, and we need certain questions on what is that platform offering. Because to be honest, like let me say, the use of whatever platform which allows us to use okay, which that platform free, it's actually not free. There's something we're actually exchanging for, and
Yeah.
it can be our personal information, which is being sold to data brokers to send targeted advertisement to us, or to send whatever. So the thing is, no matter how a platform is free, or no matter what platform we are using, we should try as much as possible to know, okay, what are they actually using this information that we use, that we pass through this platform for, and how safe are these informations kept?
Thank you so much, Moses. We are going to have a brief presentation from Commercial Limited, but before that, I'd like all the panelists to take just a few seconds to give us their parting shots, then we go to the presentation. I'll start with Veronica.
Okay, thank you very much. So one thing I would want to add from what Faya said on IP rights, if you permit me, as digital citizens, when we go online, we should ensure that we use paid streams to be able to ensure that people who have created their works benefit from their intellectual property, and we should try not to violate these rights, and like Faya rightly said, acknowledge people's right. But there's also an aspect of digital rights management, and this is key for people who are content producers, content creators, and creatives. So in situations where you have in order to protect your IP rights online, there is the intellectual property management. So once you have an IP, you're allowed to enjoy your creation. So you can share it, you can assign people to use it, you can distribute it freely, and those are certain rights that you enjoy. But you see that in the online space, there are various tools and platforms where you can just easily click and download someone's intellectual property rights without paying. But now with intellectual property management, it ensures that you restrict people having access to your intellectual property. You're able to restrict people from sharing your information. That's why if you go to certain websites, they restrict the copying. You can't copy, you can't print, and this is because they are using intellectual property management softwares or systems, and that's a way of, although that doesn't entirely people's privacy in totality. But this is one way that you can, piracy is something that's a challenge, and with regulation we'll be able to, but I just wanted to put it out there for the creatives that intellectual property management is one way that they can ensure that they can protect their works. Lastly, I would like to add that we should all be advocates for digital rights wherever we go. We should be able to educate people about their rights in situations where they are not aware of it, inform people, and we as digital citizens should be responsible when we're online. Like Faya rightly says, we should ensure that we do not steal people's identity online, identity theft. We should ensure that we do not harass people online, cyberbullying. We should refrain from conducting ourselves in a way that doesn't harm others, because where your right stops, someone else's right begins, and we should be able to respect that in the online space. The last word is just go out there and preach digital rights advocacy and be digital rights advocates. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Veronica. Let's have Aphiz to give us his parting shot.
Okay. So for me, I think Africa is a fertile ground for a lot of things. Data protection, cybersecurity. So if you currently want to switch careers or you currently want to look into a new, career path, I think this is the time for you to go into privacy law, data protection, and the likes. You know, for now, the need is not much. We don't have a lot of professionals, so it's actually a period where you can go into the field and you can make yourself an expert, and you can become relevant instead of going after the already sought after jobs. So, like Veronica already said, it is vital for you to know your rights, but at the same time, do not infringe on the rights of the other people. Do not engage in cyberbullying. Do not be part of head mentality because somebody is saying this person is bad. So you're also going to their page to, condemn the person and to also speak bad about the person. Because recently we've heard a lot about mental well-being of people being affected due to abuses they've gotten online. So you have to, apart from knowing your rights, it is also very essential to know that part of knowing your rights is knowing not to infringe on the rights of the other person. So I think for me, my parting shot will be, it is all down to us being good people. Once you're a good person, you verify any news you get, you don't put out fake news, you don't engage in cyberbullying, I think the world is going to be a better place. And we can also start by creating communities. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention this, but we are going to have the Encrypt Nigeria version. So that is also in line with creating the Nigerian community for people looking to become data privacy experts, data protection experts, and looking to go into that field. Even if you don't want to, have it as a career, it is very important for you to know what is going on and for you to be up to date as to the laws governing privacy, data protection, and data as a whole in the country and in the continent.
Yeah. Thank you, Aphiz. Let's have a few parting shots from Moses.
Okay, in short, and it's let me follow up with what Aphiz said. I think it's necessary that we need more advocates in this area that can come into the whole awareness of the data rights of Africans. And also, like, if you're a lawyer, also you can also be involved in the strategic litigation aspects, so that of trying to, for each digital right violation, you can go to court to seek redress. And also, I think why this whole awareness, and we need to really put it out there for people to know it, because if we have noticed that we've seen that technology now is actually being used to progress or to set totalitarian governments. So yes, technology has been good and has been efficient for us, has changed many things for the good, but there is the tendency of using these technologies or to affect our digital rights, and also to prevent let me say, the full conduct of democracies in African countries, where we've seen presidents, governments also using these technologies to engineer their totalitarian regime. So it's very necessary that we need more voices in these putting this awareness out there, so that even the common man and the layman will be able to know that, oh, okay, I have this right, and be able to demand it from his government or whatever platform or whatever technology he comes in contact with. And I think if we do this, I think the world will become a better place.
Thank you, Moses. There is a comment here in the chat. It's from Diana. She says, very insightful. I never knew the effects of internet shutdown on the economy. So thank you so much to my panelists. You've been so great and wonderful. And we are going to have a brief presentation from Commercial Limited. Then from there, we will close up the session. Thank you all for joining us today. And I hand over to Aphiz.
Okay, let me just share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so what I have here is just about 4 pages. Okay, let's say 3 pages, excluding the cover. So data privacy and consent, you know, this is, I've tried to put as much as I can in the short presentation. So permit me to just move to the next slide. It is about Encrypt Africa, presented by me, and I'm the staff of Commercial Limited. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Yeah. Before you talk about data privacy, you have to talk about some of the terminologies used, and that way you can relate to what the whole concept is all about. And the first is going to be data. What is data? Facts and statistics collected together for reference or analysis. So anything you can collect, anything you can store, anything you can process is data. Either it is somebody's name, it is address, date of birth, age, religion, whatever it is data, as long as it is useful and it is stored somewhere. Then data privacy is a part of data protection that deals with proper handling of data. So when you talk about data privacy, it means the methodology used in making sure that data is collected are handled properly, they are stored properly, they are processed properly, and they are shared in the right manner. So next we have personal data. Personal data is any information that can be used to identify a living person directly or indirectly. So what this means is that your personal data is any attributes anybody can use to identify you. For example, your name, your age, your date of birth, your sex, and the likes. That is your personal data, and you have to keep that confidential. Data subject is an individual whose personal data is being stored. It can be me, it can be you, it can be anybody. So everybody on this webinar, we are all data subjects to either our colleagues, to the company, to the bank, because they actually have personal information, and they have data that they've stored on either their mobile phones, servers, or workstations. Rights to be forgotten. I intentionally included this because, you know, a lot of people don't know that even when you've consented to somebody having your personal data, you can still go back to the person and tell the person, no, I don't want you to have it anymore. You'll delete it because I don't want it to have anything to do with you guys. So you actually have the right to be forgotten and go to, let's say, for example, your bank or any other financial institution and tell them, I'm not banking with you anymore. So because of that, I want you to delete my data that has been stored with you, and I don't want you to use it for any other purpose anymore. So what is data privacy all about? Data privacy is all about being open with any information being shared with you, making sure you keep you don't keep that information longer than is required, making sure that the information is accurate, making sure it is safe, and you share it in the right way. For example, I have Veronica's personal information, her email and her phone number. It is inappropriate for me to share those details with just anybody. I have to, for example, let's say a very important person reaches out to me and say, I need to bring Veronica on this project because I know she can contribute a lot. The right thing for me to do is go back to Veronica and seek consent. Either she says yes or no, then I go back to the person and say, okay, this is her phone number, this is her email. I've actually asked her and she said it is okay. So who does data privacy affect? It affects all of us because we share our data all the time, either on social media, either with our work colleagues, either with the software we are using, our computer. We share our information all the time. So it is very important for every one of us to know how to keep our data safe and secure, and know how to the best practices when it comes to data privacy. And for the last slide, going back to consent, you know, I want to give a practical example. Let's say, for example, you go to a website, the first thing you see, thanks to what GDPR did is, before you do anything, you see a cookie notification, accept or reject. And because, like every one of us, we don't take our time to actually go through it, we just click accept. But in that agreement, it is actually possible for the company to include clauses you might not be convenient or comfortable with. So it is actually very important for you to go through online agreements, go through statements before you actually consent to them or you actually sign them. Like I said before, if somebody reaches out to me to share another person's contact, let's say Veronica, for example, the right thing for me is to first go back to the owner of those information. That is the data subject. So now in this case, Veronica becomes the data subject. So I go back to her and tell her, is it fine for me to share this information with this person? She can decide to say, no, I'm busy for this period of time. And so because of that, I'll be able to be a part of that project. So getting consent is actually very important. And, for all of us that have been on social media for a while, we've actually seen the word used a lot of times for different reasons, getting consent before you do this, before you do that. So in the general workflow and in our personal life, in our professional life, it is always important to get consent from the data subject before we share, before we store, or before we process their information. Then processing personal data is generally prohibited. So I can't say because I know Veronica, I know Moses, I now take their pictures, I take the what they've done before and share on social media. That is actually very wrong, unless it is expressly allowed by law or the data subject has consented to the processing, which goes back to what I've said before, that I need to go back to Moses, I need to go back to Veronica and say, okay, guys, I actually like this content you've put out. Can I share? Can I also include your picture? Can I include your social media handles, your email address, and they say yes. So that way I can go ahead and say, okay, I've gotten their consent and I can actually share their content anywhere I want to. So for me, that is my short presentation. And if you have any more questions on data protection, data privacy, you can feel free to reach out or ask questions. Thank you, Veronica.
All right, thank you. I see we don't have any questions in the chat, so I'm thinking our audience has really learned a lot from us and enjoyed the session. You have been a wonderful audience, and to the panelists, thank you so much. You did a great job. Excellent. So thank you for joining us today for the launch of Encrypt Africa and for the webinar themed Know Your Digital Rights. Thank you so much, Veronica, Aphiz, and Moses for joining me today, and I wish you a blessed weekend. Thank you all. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Veronica. And to all our listeners, thank you for joining.
Thank you guys for joining. Thank you to all the panelists.
We will share with you the recording, so it will be out, don't worry.
Okay, yes, we will.
Yes.
All right, guys. Bye.
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 Well done, Aphiz. Nice one.
Thank you, sir. I didn't know you were on.
I was on. I was just listening.
You don't want us to draw you in?
No, not at all. I didn't want to. It's your show. It's not. It has nothing to do with me at all. I just wanted to learn from the experience. What you were saying.
Yeah.
No. Mayowa said I should send you your number again. That he hasn't been able to reach you. That he didn't get.
I called him now. He didn't pick up.
I told him now. I told him because I sent your.
He won't pick call.
I told him. He says he's not gotten it all. So I will send your number to him.
He's not gotten the server.
So he's gotten. They finished there. That on Monday or Tuesday. On Monday they'll be ready. But I said you can't come on Monday. You have engagements on Monday. Maybe from Tuesday.
Okay, he said he'll be ready for Monday or Tuesday.